Time to get this party started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's fantastic Marketing Profs webinar. I'm George B. Thomas, speaker, trainer, catalyst, and I'll be your moderator for today's educational event. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you and the time that you're spending with us today. Now, hit that chat pane real quick and let us know, where are you tuning in from today? Now, before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to go over, so here we go. If you lose audio or visual, simply exit Zoom and come back to reset your connection. The chat feature is available to you at the bottom of your screen and should only be used for general comments, because you can ask questions or send comments using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen as you think of them. We'll hear from our speakers, and then we'll go into our Q&A session where we'll answer as many questions as we can with the time remaining. Now, I'd like to take a minute to thank Act On for sponsoring today's broadcast. Act On software provides solutions that empower marketers to engage targets at every single step of the customer lifecycle, allowing marketers to build smart and effective programs to grow their businesses and generate higher customer lifetime value. Who's ready to get into the good stuff? I know I am. So with that out of the way, I'm excited to introduce Kelsey Yen and Matt Saylor. Kelsey is demand gen manager at Act On and has been working on mastering the science of email and digital marketing for the past 5 years. She uses her passion for creativity to drive revenue for brands in both B2B and B2C markets. Now, Mark is senior content marketing manager at Act On and has a decade of experience creating content and building strategy in the B2B space. And a little unknown fact, he's still waiting on the call to take over as the new host of Family Feud. All right, attendees, you're here for Email Marketing Myths Debunked. Kelsey and Matt, are you both ready to rock and roll?
We're ready.
Take it away, my friends.
Welcome, everyone, to Act On Presents Debunked. I'm Matt Saylor, Senior Content Marketing Manager with Act On, here with Kelsey Yen, our Email Marketing Manager and our resident email expert. Overview and how to play. Let's get down to things. So we tested email best practices in 3 main categories: language, timing, and design. We will share our results and suggestions on how to apply our findings to your email programs. But wait, there's more. We will be polling the audience throughout the presentation to see if you can guess what worked best in our test. Now, each correct answer is worth 1 point, and the marketer with the most points at the end of the game will win the grand prize, a $100 gift card. In the event of a tie, a winner will be randomly selected. There will also be 2 bonus rounds where points are worth double, so look out for those. A few other things to cover before we begin. Check your follow-up email from this webinar, because that is how we will be announcing information on the winner. We won't be doing that live today. And no one will go home empty-handed from today's game show, because you'll be receiving an exclusive ebook with the results from the test that we did in preparation for today's game. Now, a little bit about those results, a little bit of the fine print before we get into our main event. We came up with 30 different ideas to test over 30 days, and we tested with our engaged prospecting audience. We split that audience into an A and B group and recalculated the groups each week. We tracked the results, retested, and then we analyzed the findings. These results are based on our test only, and our prospects within our ICP results may vary. So, without any further ado, let's play the game. Debunked. Okay, category 1, we have language. So this is the language of the actual emails and subject lines. How did that affect the response to the emails? So there will be a polling question coming up for this question here. So get your answers in the test of short versus long messaging. What measures up? So we had short form emails and long form emails. We want you to guess which one was most successful. Kelsey, our hypothesis was short emails, right?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's a little bit of a personal bias here, but I read that there's 347 billion emails being sent every day. So the shorter, the more engaging I'm out of my inbox, it's more likely to get engagement. That's my hypothesis.
Okay, we'll get those answers in. And it looks like the audience is in agreement with you that it's going to be short. So let's see what was the result. Calm down, everybody. Yeah. Okay. That's a little surprising, I think. I think all of us were surprised by that, except for 12% of our audience.
Yeah.
So let's get into that a little bit, Kelsey. What do we think is going on here?
Yeah. So again, kind of surprising, at least for me. I may have been biased, but I guess not, because so many of you guys also agreed with me, and Melody demands a revote. I love that. So yeah, it's so surprising. I think when you're testing language, it's so important to look at, different things. And here we looked at click to open rate, because that's going to tell you really of the people who are engaging and opening your messages, these are the ones that actually clicked through on that message. And there was a question here that was around how short is short, how long is long. So here's an example of what a longer form message looked like for us. Couple paragraphs, some bullets, a PS, and this was like our longer. Anything where you have to scroll at least once or twice, I considered long. Our short message was, one paragraph above the fold, within that top 1/3, and that performed 29% lower than this long form message. And so I think that's a pretty clear indicator that longer messaging was more valuable to our audience, more robust content. Again, this may or may not work for you, but for us, knowing that our audience prefers a longer messaging, I think is so beneficial to know. And, with that, I think that, there's some theories I have on this too. We market to marketers. And so, as marketers, kind of when you click something, you're getting cookied, you're getting followed up on, you're increasing your lead score, you're entering a funnel, things like that. And so having all that information for you up front, before you actually get to that landing page, before you actually get cookied and followed around our site, you know exactly what you're getting into, and you're not going to click something blindly. So I think that may have a little bit of an effect to that, but still very shocked for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good hypothesis, and I think it'll behoove our players at home to think about that as we go through that. This is an audience of marketers, such as ourselves, maybe a little more sophisticated and have a little slightly different behaviors than other audiences might. But I think it's safe to say that this one is debunked. So moving on, we have our second question. Another language question. So let's get that poll going. In terms of CTAs, do B2B buyers respond better to fun language or more straightforward language? Maybe Kelsey, as we get those answers coming in, maybe you want to talk about how you constructed those two different choices.
Yeah, and again, maybe this is a little more personal bias here. I do prefer a more fun message, just because I'm in B2B, and in B2B, I feel like it can sometimes get a little droll, a little boring. And so having that fun, exciting message kind of breaks through that noise, sets you apart as a business. And so personally, I like fun, and that was my hope, at least, that fun is going to win out. And so we'll see what happens.
Okay, the answers are coming in, and actually it looks like our audience is swinging the other way a little bit. There's a lot of them are saying straightforward. We've got right now 69% straightforward, 31% fun. And those are the final results, because the poll has ended. Let's see what our results were. A little surprising. It was straightforward. I guess our audience wasn't taken by surprise, though. Let's dig in here a little bit, Kelsey.
Yeah, you guys got it. And I, to be fair, though, I kind of expected this. I was hoping for the other way, but again, it's not altogether that surprising. But I do kind of want to walk through and talk through like open rates and call to actions, and the difference there, and when to use different types of language. And so when we looked at more of a fun subject line, and I'm when I say fun, I mean more like humorous, wordplay, puns, things that are witty. There really wasn't that much of a difference. Very stat insignificant, 1% here or there. And the same with emojis. Emojis to me are fun. So we also tested doing that. And again, not too much of a lift there either way. So I think when it comes to opens and getting people into your message itself, I think you can be fun there, but when it came to the call to actions, we did actually see a lift of 7% in people clicking through. And again, kind of like the previous topic, being more straightforward, telling people what they're getting into when they click, I think is the best policy. Sometimes when you can be fun and witty or punny, like it may not necessarily translate. If I were to say something like, let's get debunked, you may not know what you're clicking into, but if I said, register for our webinar or event, you know exactly what that click is going to take you to. And so I do feel like straightforward is the best policy when it comes to call to actions, but, be fun in your subject lines. It doesn't really have that much of an effect, I would say.
Okay.
But I didn't want to stop there because I was kind of bummed. I like to be fun. I like to be a little bit more, engaging with our messaging. So I wanted to see if there were other language types that could resonate more or less with this audience. And so we did test against conversational language, straightforward language, business professional language, and we just continued to test and iterate a couple of different times to see kind of what resonated. And these are the averages that we saw. And while straightforward did win against fun, conversational really did win in the end. And again, this isn't necessarily going to be true for everyone. I know a lot of people talk about, different industries mean different things and different things like that. So, I mean, again, it's all going to be about your audience. But for us, we just wanted to test different language types to really see what resonated for us specifically. And, it makes sense. Being conversational is what the winner is. So I'm going to redo the answers here and say that conversational is the winner. And, just talk to people like they're people. And that at the end of the day, I think is going to help you move the needle.
Okay. I think we have a bonus round. This is a bonus question. Personalization, we know that's important, or is it? Let's find out. We tested first name, company, and then no personalization at all. So in other words, saying the first name of the recipient, personalizing the company, or no personalization at all. Keep in mind, these responses are ranked. So from highest open rate to lowest is what you'll be guessing here. And we have the results coming in. Okay, it looks like people are thinking first name. No, it's getting kind of exciting here as it closes out. Other ones kind of creeping up. We have a few more seconds to get your answers in. Everybody get those votes in, but I think first name, then company, and then no personalization in that order is what everybody seems to be leaning towards here. What was our hypothesis for this, Kelsey?
I think I was kind of all over the place on what would perform better, but I kind of felt like it would be company, first name, then no personalization, that first one. I feel like any kind of personalization is better than none. And so that was my hypothesis.
Okay, well, let's find out what the answer was. Interesting. Wow. Yeah, I don't know that we expected that. So the audience thought first name would be more important than company personalization, but we actually found, looks like that first name was actually the loser in this category. That's definitely shocking. So let's go a little deeper there, Kels.
Yeah, I just kind of want to quickly talk about, this result with the first name being the lower performer here when it comes to opens, and the rise and fall of that first name personalization. I think maybe a few years ago, that was, the peak of personalization is being able to put someone's first name on things. It's like, ooh, they know my name, they're talking to me. But I think as technology has improved, as we're able to get more personalized with our outreach and our marketing, it's not necessarily moving the needle as much as, it has in years past. So here's a couple of examples of kind of the different variations that we did. This was all the same message, this example, without personalization, with a first name personalization, and then with a company name as that personalization. And, I think it kind of makes sense in a B2B world too, right? If you're talking to me about a business problem or a business solution, it may not resonate as much when I say, Kelsey, how do you feel about sales and marketing alignment? But if you put it in the realm of how my business is affected by sales and marketing alignment, it does impact me a little bit more. So it does make sense that, our audience would engage a little bit more with that type of personalization. So still surprising though, that, it didn't have any kind of impact for first name. But I think the moral here is that when you can connect your subject to the actual content of your message, that's when you're going to get the best performance. But what was really surprising was how this affected actual engagement of that message. So if you click through, we can take a look at how people actually engage. And now I didn't really expect to see so much lift when I just personalized that subject line. But I think what it did was put a lens on how people read and reviewed that actual marketing message. It kind of put a lens of, okay, this is my company's problem, and this is how, it relates. And so crazy numbers here, 30%, 36% increase in clicks when we used company over first name. But any kind of personalization saw an 83% increase in clicks compared to no personalization. 83%.
Right, significant.
It's bonkers. And I think that the moral here is opens are great. And that's what I originally had said would be the winner of my test, would be the open rate. But kind of digging deeper and really understanding what the actual effect of these things are is what's ultimately going to get you that answer. So I would say that while those were the results of the subject line test, personalization over no personalization wins out. But try different things, try company, try industry, try maybe job title, things like that, whatever is going to relate most to your actual message and create that positive lens as they read through your content is ultimately going to be what helps you move that needle.
Yeah, I have kind of a pet theory here. I mean, I think for me, I know as a B2B marketer myself, sales prospecting and marketing to B2B has gotten pretty aggressive over recent years. And so I wonder if that first name personalization that used to kind of resonate may actually be a little bit more something that marketers who've been around for a while are a little wary of, Kelsey. That's my personal theory. But I think it's safe to say that this one has been debunked. Okay, we're now moving on to category 2. Those were our questions all about language, and these will be around timing. So when you actually send the email, what is the impact? So for this, we asked, what's the best day to send an email? We don't have a poll question here because it's a little bit complicated. We had several options, but we will go here to some of the results. Kelsey, what did we find when we tested days of the week?
Yeah, I feel like the best day to send an email is something that everybody always asks, but I think it's so personal to your company, to your business, to your audience. And so not something I necessarily needed to pull here because I feel like it's going to be different. But the conventional wisdom, I think that we've all kind of heard, is that Tuesday through Thursday are the best days to send an email. Stay away from those fringe days, different things like that. And so that's historically what we have always done, Tuesday through Thursday. But we rounded up all of the sends that we had done, created the averages, and kind of put them side to side to see what actual day performed the best. And in terms of opens, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday were our best days. So conventional wisdom held up there. But when it actually came to engagement and how they were interacting with our content, look at that Friday, a huge boost. And, Matt, we talked about a theory there that, people want to, have a little bit more time to be a little bit work adjacent in their tasks, review their emails, different things like that. So they have more time to spend engaging with content or reading through their emails versus a day that may be heavier with meetings or busier, like a Monday, right? Getting back on the track. And so combining those results, I would say that our best day was Friday, actually, to send an email. And that was really surprising for me.
TGIF. Friday. You heard it here first.
So I wanted to test against, knowing that Friday performed best for us. I did another test. Again, this is not something that we did as in depth as we did all the other testing, but just kind of a one-off here. Thursday versus Friday, our two best days. They kind of performed when head to head, pretty even here, but conversions were 11% higher on Friday. And so again, not just looking at your baseline KPIs when you're doing these tests, but going a little bit deeper. What is your ultimate goal with your marketing? And that's going to be conversions. That's going to be getting people to your site. That's going to be driving people to go down the funnel by engaging with different things on your website. So if conversions is your ultimate goal, which a lot of times it is, figure out what day is going to produce those best results. And for us, Friday emails. So if you guys are on our mailing list, look out. You'll be getting some Friday emails from us.
Yeah, I think, say it along with me, folks. This one is debunked. So let's move on to our next timing question. This is all around engagement. We tested days, so this is time of day, morning or afternoon, and there will be a polling question here. So I think, Kelsey, our hypothesis, morning, that seems to be the conventional wisdom, right? And that seems to be what the audience is saying as the answers come in. Well, it's getting a little tighter as it goes on, but right now 58% morning, about 42% afternoon. It's getting a little tighter as we continue to count. 54% in the morning. Very interesting. You get those answers in, everybody. Does the early bird get the worm? Okay, we're now 53% say morning, 47% afternoon. So it got a little closer over the course of the poll there, but it's still sort of, I think the marketing industry conventional wisdom was the winner of the poll. But what did the test say? Oh, that's one we could feel good about. We were right. No debunking here.
Yeah, I think it's good to be right every now and then. But yeah, I think, I wasn't too surprised by this, right? It's what I kind of expected. I think when I was in the B2C realm, we would typically send our main communications in the morning, and then our secondary send would be in the afternoon. And so morning always had an emphasis on the type of message that we send. This is like our main one that we want to get engaged with. The secondary send would be like a bonus engagement, and kind of similar with when I've been in B2B as well. Same, try to send it in the morning as early as you can, and then if you need to send in the afternoon, that's also great. But making sure that you actually send in the time zone of your audience as well is an important note here. We are on the West Coast, so a lot of times if we don't do that, they may get out in the afternoon versus the morning. So all these tests were done in recipient time zone, which I think is important to note. But we did see an increased lift in clicks of 9% in the morning over afternoon, and 19% click to open rate in the morning as well. And so again, that means in the mornings, people are actually engaging with the content a little bit more than they do in the afternoon. And then just some bonus content here. I read on LinkedIn that trying to send, that if you sent on the off hour, so most people send their emails if in the morning around 8, 9, 10, what have you, try sending in between that. So 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, see if you get more engagement, because the theory is here that everybody sends on the hour. So yours will kind of break through the noise if you send in between. And that proved true to us too. So that was a good tip that I got on LinkedIn. Definitely suggest you try that out. We typically send our morning sends at 9 a.m. So we did 9:30, and then we typically do a 2 p.m. if we do an afternoon send. So I did 2:35 just to be different. And then I tested that over a few different emails and different email types. But what I saw here was that there was a 6% lift over the course of morning or afternoon when we sent off the hours. So not huge, but hey, even just 6% more clicks is a great
6%.
yeah, I'll take it. 6% more people to my website, I'll take it, right? 6% more people engaging with my marketing, I'm going to take it. But what was really exciting here was the lift in conversions that we saw in the morning when we did the off hours. A 79% increase in conversions in the off hours. And yeah, wow. Yeah, so surprising. I think that, I have, again, some unfounded theories here, right? It could be, on the hour people have meetings maybe, and then in the half hour mark, maybe they're off their meetings or something like that. They have a little bit more time to engage with marketing and emails, check their messages after something. But definitely something that we're going to continue to try and continue to do, because mornings off hours is a working thing for us, and we're going to continue doing it.
It's very interesting. I wonder, Kelsey, if people are getting so many emails at that 9 o'clock hour that you have a slightly higher chance of breaking through some of the noise if you do it at 9:30.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, if everybody's sending at say 9:30 comes around, you're at that top. You're at the top of the inbox instead of buried between all the noise. And so I think that's definitely a great point as well.
So the early bird gets the worm, but the bird that hits snooze might get the bigger one. All right, very interesting. Let's go to design. So here we tested the actual design of the emails. And I'm really interested to hear the results here. So in the battle of links versus buttons, who gets the most clicks? So we will have a polling question here. What do you think people clicked on more? Links as in text or buttons? Looks like buttons is really running away with things here. Kelsey, I know that was our hypothesis.
Yeah, I think there's a time and there's a place for hyperlinks and things like that. And usually that's within the body of the message. But here what we're testing is the main call to action. And I think with the main call to action, a button is what is going to perform better. And then at least that's my hypothesis.
Yeah, and who doesn't like a button?
Yeah, everybody wants to push the button, right?
Poll responses coming in. Okay, yeah, 72% agree with us that it's going to be buttons, and 28% preferred links. So what are we going to see here when we see the results? I think we all are losers here today. What happened here, Kelsey? Looks like links won over buttons. Really unexpected result.
Yeah, and it was weird even creating this test, to be honest with you. Like, it just felt wrong. I think I've always just used buttons. I think that for me personally, I like to click a button, but if for some reason these links went out, and here's a prime example of a designed message that we sent where it was a newsletter where we had links instead of buttons. And again, with a newsletter, you typically do see more buttons. And so this was an interesting test that we did here, and 25% more clicks on links than buttons. This is absurd to me, but it's so interesting. And I see there's some outrage here in the chat. And I'm sorry, I was outraged too, and I don't know what to say here except for that. If hyperlinks are what the people want, I'm going to give the people what they want. But I do want to give like a little bonus here. What we did additionally test was including those links and those buttons in the top third of the message. So again, above the fold. And when we did that, whether it was a link or button, we saw an increase of click-throughs of 26%. So if you're completely opposed to doing hyperlinks, I would at least suggest putting them in the top before the fold and try to see if you can get increased engagement that way. But again, very surprising.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I know, Kelsey, we were talking, and I think we had a theory that might actually come up again, that could it be that the link, the plain text link, looks a little bit more like a person's email coming to you rather than, a branded corporate kind of message.
Yeah, and that could be the case.
Very interesting. I think it's safe to say this has been debunked. So now we'll move on to colors in the emails. Color is king. Which color reigned supreme? So there will be a poll question here. We used warm, cool, or neutral colors. For those of you who might have failed color theory in art class, warm is red, orange, cool, blues, greens, and neutral, of course, would be black, white, colors like that. Lots of opinions here in the polling. A little bit of back and forth here. So keep in mind, these choices are from the highest click-through rate to the lowest in that order. So if you think warm wins, you would put that first, and so on. Looks like cool is at the lead here with a few seconds to go. Followed closely by warm then cool. Interesting. So a little bit of a split, perhaps. A few more seconds to get your answers in, everyone. What will we see? Okay, well, the final response, it looks like we think in the audience that cool won the day, followed by neutral, and that warm actually lost. That's interesting. Let's see what we actually found. Sorry, studio audience. Looks like didn't quite get this one. Let's go a little into some color theory first, Kelsey, and then into the results.
Yeah, this one was interesting too, and I think the audience got it right despite our results, because as I was kind of doing this email color theory and how different colors evoke different emotions and different things like that, your cooler tones, your greens, blues, those are supposed to invoke trust, happiness. These are all positive things, and actually majority of people state that their favorite color is blue. So doing a cooler tone, doing something like a blue or green or teal or something like that, should actually win out. And for us, for some reason, it didn't. And so again, I'll cover through some of the results that we saw. But for us, if you go back a little bit, sorry. If you look at the color scale and the color spectrum, warm tones, those are going to be things that you use for more urgent. They help pop out more against, a typical black font of the whole message. And so using colors within your headers, your links, your CTAs to bold text that are a little bit warmer can create that urgency and that kind of excitement. And then cool tones, like I mentioned, are a little bit more happy, more relaxed. And a lot of brands, if you look through your email correspondence, I'm sure that you'll see a lot of brands use blues when it comes to their hyperlinks and things like that. And then black is conventionally black or other neutral tones like white or brown are conventionally seen as more modern or minimalistic. And so not really evoking necessarily a feeling or an emotion, but kind of giving that more modern hip vibe. So that's a little bit of email color theory. And so the results that we saw, so our three brand, we stuck within our brand guidelines here when we did the colors. So warm for us was like this pink red. Teal blue is our main brand color. And then black we did as more of a neutral, and we couldn't completely get away from that teal because, like I said, it's our main brand color, so it's hard to completely devoid it from that message. But when it came to actual call to action buttons and grabbing readers' attention within like the main header, we stuck with our color sample. And what we saw was a 32% increase in that call to action button being clicked when it was a warm tone versus a cool tone. And then similarly with the black, a 19% increase in clicks on that CTA button when it was compared to that blue tone. And then overall, when we did it multiple times, again, we tested everything at least a few times. The average here was 50% lower clicks on that teal button over a black. And so kind of crazy results here. Sorry, brand team, but Our main brand color doesn't get the clicks, and so
maybe time for a rebrand.
yeah.
Time for a bonus round, everybody. This is our final question where we'll have a poll, and this is the ultimate design face-off: plain text email versus designed email. Our hypothesis, of course, is that the designed email would win the day. But what do we all think?
Yeah.
Do we have a poll here for this question?
This one did not have a poll attached to it.
Oh, sorry about that, everybody. We did not poll this one. Feel free to pop in the chat if you have your thoughts on that. We won't use this in the final results, but I think I would assume that we probably all would have picked design. Don't you think, Kelsey? That seems to be the conventional wisdom.
That's what I'm thinking here, but I'm seeing a lot of planes over in this chat. So maybe I'm alone in this. And again, maybe it's a personal bias here. I think as an email marketer myself, I get the most enjoyment out of my job when I can create something that's going to help engage people and drive them down, the email, get them, more through our marketing messaging with, graphics or with animations, things like that. So I prefer a designed message over a plain text, especially if I'm trying to get, my attention span when it comes to email is very short. So it's something that pops out at me a little bit more, kind of creates better engagement for me personally. So my hypothesis was design.
Okay, let's see what the results were of the test. That is an absolutely shocking result. Plain text winning over design, although maybe some of our audience members saw it coming based on what we saw in the chat.
Yes, I feel like the audience got it right here. Maybe I didn't, but the audience did, and I think David has it right too. Nobody wants to read, but so in my opinion, a designed email should get more engagement, but that wasn't what the results told us here. And so here's an example of plain text, and I say plain text, but I mean it's still technically HTML. It's just less designed. That's just straightforward messaging. And maybe even kind of goes back to some of our earlier tests here. It feels a little bit more personal, right? It's coming from a person. And so that could be one of the aspects that contributed to this type of success of a plain text message. It feels more one-to-one, which is a differentiator within B2B, right? It's not a business talking to a person, it's a person talking to a person. And I think, as we review all of these results, I think at the end of the day, that's the main thing, right? It's a person talking to a person. People are marketers too, or people are, what did you say? Businesses are people too. So
marketers are, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's like the moral of the story here. But what we saw was a 14% click-through lift on plain text over designed, an 8% increase on click-to-open rate when it came from a person. But most surprising here was our conversion rate, a 45% higher conversion rate on plain text messages over designed. And how that actually breaks out, we had 25 form fills when it was a designed message, 45 from a plain text message. And so again, I think that the moral here is when you're doing these testings, I think your baseline KPIs, your overall like opens, clicks, and things like that are going to help tell part of your story. But really knowing what the ultimate goal is for you and your business is what really is important here. And so in this case, this was, I believe, a webinar invite in this example. And so our goal was to get increased registrations. And so having that plain text message got us to that end goal of more registrations. And so, again, consuming all of the content, consuming all the metrics, and then really diving deeper to see what the true story is ultimately what is going to help you understand your results. So plain text.
I don't know if we can say this one was debunked because our audience actually got it right. So I'm going to say this one actually was bunked. Okay, final results for those of you playing along at home. For length, long messages won. We had a plus 26% click-through rate for a longer message. With tone, it's all about keeping it conversational, up to a 50% lift in clicks. With personalization, company personalization was the winner there, with up to 15% more opens and 36% more clicks. For time of day, it was morning with 19% better engagement. And remember, we had a bonus round there that said that off hours were actually a slightly better time to send. When it comes to CTAs, people in our tests preferred plain hyperlinks, go figure, 25% lift in clicks. When it came to color, warm tones were actually the winner with a 32% better click-through rate. And finally, in terms of the style, plain text was the winner with 45% more conversions. Kelsey, I know you have some final thoughts you wanted to go through here now that we've had our results. I want to thank everybody at home for playing. What can we learn from this?
Yeah, and so again, I feel like there's been a lot in the chat, there's been a lot of in the QA, and the main thing I hear is this is what's worked for our audience, right? It's going to differ from audience to audience, and in industry to industry too. So really keep that in mind. And when you are conducting your A/B test, focus on who your main ICP is. Who would you benefit the most from learning their behaviors, right? And so I think if you're starting out A/B testing, or if you really want to dive deep and really understand what you can do to improve engagement and move the needle, focus there first. And then set goals and track the results. I am guilty of this up until this campaign and this whole thing that we did here of testing things and then kind of being like, oh, that's cool, and moving on and continuing to do things. But really kind of digging deep and understanding what those metrics and those results are actually saying, and then applying them into your everyday messaging is what ultimately is going to help you continue to see that incremental lift in your engagement and in your marketing. And then test and reiterate and test again and keep trying, keep doing different things. And while we saw great success with a lot of these, they may not hold true for every different segmentation of our engaged audience. They may not hold true, with different seasonalities and things like that. Friday was our best day to send, but I probably wouldn't send an email on a Friday before a long weekend, right? So like they may or may not necessarily translate for all the time. And so just continuing to test and continuing to try new things is what ultimately is going to help you better understand your audience and make those real improvements.
All right, and we have a little bit of a preview of our data here in the slide. And remember that we're going to have that ebook coming to your email that has all the data that we collected, so no one will go home empty-handed today. For those at home who want to start doing some tests, Kelsey, where would you recommend they begin?
I think your top 4 things that you should try first would be tone of voice, really understanding what resonates with your audience, that tone, that language. That's number 1. 2 is the message length, right? If your audience prefers brevity, be brief, right? Less time for you to spend on creating messages. But, really understanding that length aspect is important as well. Day and time, obviously knowing when to send is going to be important and key to getting the best engagement. And then, of course, designed versus plain text.
Okay, thank you so much, Kelsey. That's the end of this part of the program. Okay, thank you. Yes, we appreciate your applause. We're now going to go back to George and do a little Q&A. I know questions have been coming in as we've been going here.
They absolutely have. But first of all, wow, Kelsey, Matt, thank you for the great presentation. And dare I say, the creativity that you and the team has put together. If you look at the chat pane, remember, ladies and gentlemen, we're on a webinar. We've got words like outstanding, thank you, good stuff, love the format. So it kept people engaged. And trust me, as somebody who has emceed hundreds of these, I don't think I took my eyes off the screen once the entire presentation. So it was absolutely fabulous. Attendees, if you do have questions, get them in. We do have some time. We're going to go to the top of the hour. But one question that was asked over and over and again, I want to make sure we ask that at the very beginning is, could you share kind of some information about the sample size that you were using to get some of the results that you were talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we only tested with one audience. We kept it the same audience for all the tests so that the results would be apples to apples. And so our audience size is our engaged audience. It's about 80,000 contacts. So continuously about the same size throughout each send.
Love it. And then Amanda asks, because back when you were talking about conversational versus straightforward, what type of examples or what kind of emails maybe we're using for the examples of that information?
Yeah. So when it comes to the call to actions, right? So your buttons or your hyperlinks, straightforward and conversational are going to kind of be similar, where the real difference is going to be in the overall message. So the message that's framing those call to actions and how it kind of puts that lens on what you're clicking. And so conversational is more of how I'm talking to you right here. Like, we'll be doing a webinar coming up. Please join us. Tune in for all the fun, right? That's conversational. Straightforward would be like, join us for our Debunk'd webinar where we uncover the, blah, 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 blah. So like kind of being more intentional with your wording. It would be more of a straightforward, giving exactly what they can expect versus something that's a little bit more, devoid of jargon or things like that.
Love it. And then one of the things that I thought you were going to break the internet on was buttons versus actual clicks. And so we have a question from James. Given your CTA buttons versus hyperlinks test, did you try red hyperlinks to see if that improved clicks? Like, was it different colors of links versus different colors of buttons? Like, how far did we go into that?
It's a great question. Definitely something I'm going to continue to test, and that's a great recommendation. We didn't for this specifically. We tried to keep all of our tests within one realm so that we would have clear results to share out and not kind of have convoluted results of, I tried this color with this button and this with this, so that it was kind of all kind of one-to-one. But definitely, looking at all of my results, I can now try multiple things and continue to test and reiterate on those to see if I can increase those percentages even more. So great tip.
Love it. And this also is back when we were trying to break the internet on buttons versus clicks. And I think there's even maybe a little bit of a larger conversation here around A/B testing, but Danielle, sorry, were both emails sent at the same time/day when testing those types of things?
Yeah, they were. Outside of the ones where we specifically tested date and time, everything was sent exactly at the same time to the splits. And so tried to keep, again, as much consistency with anything outside of what we were testing. So if we were testing like the hyperlinks, we wanted to make sure that time wasn't reflected within that test or wasn't going to play a factor there. So yeah, we didn't. But again, to your point, knowing the times that work best for us now, knowing the days, continuing to test and iterate, happy to give some more follow-ups to see if that helps improve the call to actions.
Love it. Love it. James actually asked a really good question. Could you maybe talk to us about open rates as a metric at this point, and how marketers, especially B2B marketers, should or should not be paying attention to that?
Yeah, there were times where open rates did get impacted with some of these results, and then there was times where they didn't. I think a lot of people have questions around that Apple privacy policy and how open rates are kind of a finicky, KPI nowadays. But I think especially when it comes to testing, that's not necessarily the case because what you're looking at is the percent difference. And so you can assume that there's going to be fake opens on both variants, right? So you want to see what the percent lift is on what you're actually testing or what you're changing between the two, because they're both sent at the same time to the same audience, but just split A and B, you hope at least that you're getting the same amount or same variance of fake opens. And so you're really just trying to tell what the difference is there. And so I still find it a relevant KPI, maybe not necessarily to be like, oh, 40% of my audience actually did open. No, that's probably not true. But knowing that 40% open this one and 45% open this one is kind of telling of like, this actually can help increase that open rate by, an additional 5%.
Interesting. Very interesting. Stephen asked regarding morning/afternoon timing, what's the thought on using the optimized send feature that sends based on when a user typically opens?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know, Act On, we do that as well. We have that feature. For the sake of testing, I was curious, but there's always going to be new technology and new things that you can do to try and increase. And so if you're interested, I would suggest maybe you do find out your morning or afternoon, what works better for you, and then test that, winner, say morning, against an optimized send time, right? And see who wins out, see if your optimized send time algorithm actually proves true, right? Or if you need to do continual testing. And so I think again, it's going to come down to your audience and see. Hopefully the algorithm knows what it's doing and you can just rely on that. But I think it's important to kind of know from your business and your industry what works in a general perspective, so that if you do need to have a one-off send, you don't have time to do optimized send times, things like that, that kind of a benchmark of what's going to perform well for you.
Love it. And we're going to keep going with the testing stuff because, and I love a good testing nerd and testing questions. By the way, there's two that are going to come up back to back here. But Amanda asked, did you do this via multivariate testing or single A/B testing for each of your variables?
Oh, good question. Good question. I did both. Oh, I did both. Majority of all of our tests were an A/B split, and then of course we refreshed those audiences every time so that they wasn't the same groups getting the same types of things. And so, for most of them, they were a single A/B split. There were a couple of times where I did an A and an AB and then a BA and a BB, and those were more when I was testing things that were focused on messaging specifically. So if I was testing language, then maybe my secondary split was testing that subject line and seeing if that would get incremental engagement there. And so I tried to, if I was going to do the multivariants, I tried to keep those metrics separate in terms of what I was looking at.
And then this is a great question, by the way, that this person is asking. Sam says, should I really test every email I send?
If you have the time and the resources, I say why not? Why not? But I think again, there's so many different things you can test. It doesn't have to be, these face-offs, these big, morning or afternoon, or these big HTML or plain text. They don't have to be these wide variant things. They could be simple things that you test every day. Maybe it's like you capitalize the first word in the subject line and then you don't on this other one. Maybe it's a question in your subject line. Maybe it's a statement, right? It doesn't always have to be these big debunking things. I think it's great to do these debunking things and to see what resonates. But if you're going to test every day, and when I say why not, right? Whatever's going to get you incremental engagement and eyes on your marketing is always a benefit. But you don't have to do big things every time, and just do what you can. As marketers, I say, do what you can, and anything that you do with thought and goals behind it is what's ultimately going to get you that end result that you're looking for.
And I think, Kelsey, if I could add, I think on the content side, testing is a great opportunity to test different messages. So you might try different messages in those subject lines and learn what's actually appealing to your audience. So that's a tip I would put out there.
Nice. We just got a question. I'll switch to this one real quick because I don't think it's something that we actually talked about, but it's intriguing my brain, if you will. Amber asks, should you capitalize letters in your subject line?
Yeah, I've seen, we've done it before, not necessarily for this debunk thing. We've done it before and we've seen, small lifts here and there. And I think it definitely depends on the word that you're capitalizing as well. I think that first word is a great one to capitalize because it kind of draws your attention in quickly. But, it may not, if your first word is the, that's not going to help you necessarily, right? And so I think it's important to capitalize the word that is either going to get you that differentiate you from that mix of emails within your inbox. So maybe it's a provocative word, or maybe it's like a straightforward word, right? Whatever that word is, try it and see what works. But again, like we've been saying this whole time, what works for us doesn't necessarily mean it'll work for you. But we have seen some incremental lifts when we do things like that, like capitalization.
Love it. And this is a very important question. Eugene says, what KPIs should I report on and share with my leadership team pertaining to emails and what we've talked about today?
Yeah, I think when it comes to KPIs, you have your common opens, clicks, click to open, opt outs, things like that. And then those are always great to share out and know what your baseline is, what you're consistently getting. And so that when you do have tests, you can say these are the improvements that we've made to engagement, but also providing leadership with the conversion and understanding like this is the impact that it's having on the business is also a great thing that you can share as well.
Nice. I'm not exactly sure what Jamie's asking. You might, but I'm not email ninja or nerd per se. But the question is, should you use a pre-header, maybe preview text, maybe? Should you use a pre-header with the subject line? What do you think of pre-headers? Or maybe it's preview text. I'm not exactly sure the term there.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing, but yeah, it's subjective. I feel like sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. It really just depends on how I'm feeling that day, if I'm honest. And it also depends on what your audience uses to see their emails, right? So if it's if your main audience are mostly desktop users, your pre-header is actually kind of smaller, but on mobile, sometimes you get 2 lines for preview text. And so it really depends on what your audience the majority of your audience uses. And so for us, most people check their emails on their desktop when it comes to B2B. And so sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. And then again, it'll depend on that first line of my email. Sometimes my first line of my email, I feel like is very strong. So I don't necessarily need that preview because I'd rather them see that first line of the email to spark that excitement, because first line of the email is usually personalized. Hi, Kelsey, blah, 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 blah. Whereas with preview text, you can't actually do personalization. So, it really depends on the content and the type of messaging that you're sending out, but definitely something you can try too. I know that I've seen things on LinkedIn as well that not putting any kind of preview text and creating that blank space is actually something that has worked for some people as well. So try it.
Love it. And what's nice is we've got almost 2 very close or almost identical questions. Bob actually asked it, how do I know if my test is statistically, it's not even Friday, people, statistically relevant? While Courtney asked it in a way, what % lift in results is worth following through on, i.e. what is worth putting into practice? How do you know the answer to that?
I think it's kind of depends, right? So I would say that if you're not seeing anything that's statistically significant, see, it is hard.
I don't feel bad now.
I don't know if you jinxed me or what, but it's hard to tell if something is statistically significant without looking at your entire audience size. So sometimes if I'm doing a split, an A/B split, and then like a secondary split, maybe that audience size isn't really large enough to see a real increase, because, maybe 10% out of 100 is really only 10 people. So is that really statistically significant that 10 more people clicked? I think it's kind of subjective. I usually will kind of throw out and retry things that are like less than 5%, or where I feel like the audience wasn't large enough to really give me a true result. And then just kind of playing it by ear. Again, when I saw those lips of like 20, 30%, 80% in conversions, things like that, those are definitely things I'm going to implement absolutely into my everyday messaging, because those are giving me huge statistical significance. I don't even know why I tried it again. Because those are giving me huge lifts, right? And so if I can continue to even see a fraction of that lift every time I send, for me, that's worth it.
Love it. And final question from the audience. They want to know, Matt, where did you get that dope Family Feud jacket?
Oh, okay. You got to keep this secret. This is my fashion tip that I always give everybody. As a man looking for looks, very affordable, really good colors, and this is like all natural fibers. JCPenney. I know it's surprising, but JCPenney, that's where you go.
There you go. I think that's
debunked.
That's debunked. The same place where I think Rain Man got his underwear and
I
Mr.
know.
Miyagi got his belt, I do believe. Thank you, Kelsey and Matt, once again for an amazing presentation. And thank you, Act On, for sponsoring today's presentation. We couldn't do it without you, truly. Audience, as a quick FYI, when you exit Zoom, there will be a window that pops up with a very short 30-second survey. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's session. Thank you for joining today. Until we meet again, remember to be a happy, helpful, humble B2B marketing human. And we'll see you again real soon on the next Marketing Profs event. Great job, guys.
Right.
Everyone.